Hello, everyone. Great to see you. I'm excited for today's golden hour. It's January 12th, 2022. Lots of twos. And I'm excited to have Patricia DeFonte speaking today about estate planning. She is one of my favorite attorneys, and she focuses solely on estate planning and is just a professional and knows what she's doing. And I'm really excited to have her here today. So thank you for coming, Patricia. And with that being said, I will pass it off to you.
Thank you so much for having me here, Lainey. I love a soapbox and I am obsessed with what I do for a living. So I'm an estate planning lawyer. And what that means is I help people get organized for the inevitable because there is a 100% chance of death. I don't know if you saw that on the news lately, but it's true. But also for the unexpected. Who knows if you're going to fall down and hit your head? Who knows if someone you love or someone that you count on is going to fall down and hit their head. So estate planning is not something that you do when you're old or when you're near death. It's something that you do now as an adult. It's really, even an 18-year-old needs an estate plan. And that doesn't mean the big, huge binder with 250 pages of documents. It can mean a statutory form with an advanced healthcare directive, statutory form with a durable power of attorney. That can be a sufficient estate plan, and maybe a little will, depending on your age and how complicated your life is. It's a social justice issue. The laws are not set up to help you maintain your privacy, maintain family harmony, or hold on to all of your assets. They're not. And sometimes the less that you have, imagine if you're a family and you just own one piece of real estate, you own the family house. When the parents die, what happens to that house? Well, if you don't have a trust, if you don't have a proper estate plan, the kids are thrown into turmoil. If they start trying to buy each other out of the house, it triggers all different types of tax. Plus they're just consumed and stuck in the courts for, 1, 2, 3 years sometimes. So estate planning is foundational. It used to be considered like the top of the financial advisory pyramid. Not anymore. And as far as I'm concerned, it never was. It really is down here. It's foundational. And we can really thank the LGBT plus bar for making this into such an absolute must as a social justice issue. Some history behind that is back in the 80s during the AIDS crisis, the law in California for an advanced healthcare directive was your spouse was automatically your agent. And if you weren't married, then your adult children. If you didn't have adult children, then your parents. Well, what happens to people who are precluded from getting married and are shut out from adopting children? It's their parents. These parents who threw their sons out of the house, all of a sudden show up in the hospital room, throw the life partner out of the room and start making decisions. It was toxic. So now we have no rules. Wild West, Terry Schiavo situation, if the people who love you the most don't agree. But I think it's a little bit more equitable. Estate planning is foundational. It really is for everyone. And it absolutely protects women because we live longer. Inheritance is so nice that women do it twice. My friend Zakia says, we inherit from our parents and then we inherit again from our spouses and partners. And so it's absolutely critical, especially for women, to make sure that the estate plan is done, that we have one for ourselves, and that anyone that we're counting on, our spouse, our partner, that they have it done, and that it's looked at every 3 years to make sure it's perfect. That was a lot as an intro.
Foundational.
Yes. I think we have some polls.
Yeah. Let's see. We can do polling. Yes.
Carly, did you have a question?
I do have a question.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'll wait a second.
So recently I was actually talking with a friend of mine who works for a big tech company, and her partner, they're not married. They have a child, but they're not married. Her partner also works for Genentech. And recently this friend said, because I'd been talking to them about a trust, and she's like, oh yeah, and we got a trust because so-and-so's company has this service where we got it done. I think it was possibly for free.
Okay.
And I basically tabled that conversation because I knew I was going to be participating in this conversation. And I wanted to ask, I mean, I know that that probably isn't the best route for them, but what can I say that's accurate and guiding them properly?
First of all, that companies offer this legal benefit is wonderful. And it's a lot of companies in tech, and it's also the medical community, like UCSF, CPMC, they all offer this, and not just to medical staff, but to staff in general, which is, it's a wonderful benefit. Here's the problem sometimes. I think it's fantastic if you're young and single and you don't have real estate, absolutely get it done. Where it can be a little bit stickier is often the lawyers are very junior, and it's a great opportunity for them to work with a lot of different types of people, see a lot of different types of scenarios, and get a lot of experience because it's a client funnel. The problem is that they're not paid very much. The last time I looked into it was about 4 years ago, and I decided not to do it. The lawyer was getting paid about $700. So usually what that means is that what you're offered is a very de minimis service. And when it comes to, say you're creating a trust, who gets my stuff? Well, it's just going to be Lisa gets it. It's not going to be Lisa gets it, and we're going to hold her portion in a trust, and she can make decisions about when she wants to pull that money out. And if Lisa's on drugs, or if Lisa's the victim of domestic violence, or if Lisa has predator problems, we're going to protect her from that. All of that would cost a lot more. And so sometimes by the time you're done getting it exactly the way you want it, you are paying maybe a little bit more than market, maybe a little less than market rate. The trouble is you don't know what the options are. And even if the lawyer explains the options to you, you see them all as an upsell. And so you automatically don't want them. I would say that anybody that's going to go that route, there are quite a few lawyers who do educational workshops. I do them twice a month. And if you Google me, if you do Patricia DeFonte Eventbrite or Patricia DeFonte workshops, those just pop right up. Come to a workshop, come and learn what the options are. And that way, if that's truly what you can afford, at least you can maximize that experience. I would never say to someone, that don't do that. But I do think that for some people, that's a stretch. And for unmarried couples where there's real estate involved and kids involved, I think that's probably too complicated of a scenario. And for married blended families, it's too complicated of a scenario. But I really love it for singles who are they just want some documents to protect themselves. And maybe, so if something happens to me, I just want everything to go to my parents and I want it to go to them clean. I don't want them having to deal with the probate court at all because they'll be a mess if we die out of order. It can be a wonderful service. But I would prefer that people tread lightly. If you want to tell your friends to come to my workshop, they can come and they can learn a little bit. And I do workshops specifically for unmarried couples because very, very particular concerns around that.
Great, thank you.
Great question. And I'll put the link when I post this online. I'll put the link in the chat below the video. So it'll be there for everyone. Would you like me to do the poll right now?
Sure, let's do a poll.
Okay. Launch poll.
I love polls.
Okay. So.
Oh, I'm going to fill it out too.
Okay. I would ask you, does everybody know what a revocable trust is, I guess?
If you have one, you'll know, and I'll explain it. I'm going to fill out the poll too. This is
Okay,
cute.
do it.
So the poll asks, do you have a revocable trust? Yes or no? When's the last time you saw your estate planning lawyer? And the answer that we're looking for here is within the last 3 years. Why? Because the laws change, because you might change. Statistically, something's going to change. And your estate plan is not the documents. Documents are the foundation, but your plan is everything that you do after that, making sure that your real estate is in the trust, that you change the beneficiary designations on your life insurance policy so that that's the trust. What about your retirement accounts? If you have minor kids, does that money flow through the trust? I don't know. What about those 529 accounts, all of your bank accounts? So question, do you have minor children? If you have minor children, you absolutely have to have a revocable trust because you don't want them, if the worst happens, them to just get their money when they're 18, which a judge might decide. But you also have to think about guardianship. Now, when you name people, it's not automatic. The judge doesn't look at the piece of paper and go, oh, Chris and Jordan, fabulous. No, the judge says, who is this Chris? Who is this Jordan? Where do they live? What's their situation? Does he have any money? Or do they have any DUIs? Is somebody with a terminal illness living with them? They want to make sure that the children are placed in a home where it is in their best interest. So instead of just listing a couple names in a will, and even if you have a revocable trust, you're going to have a will that lets the court know, Your Honor, I have a trust. Just put this in your outbox, no probate. A lot of lawyers will use that as an opportunity to write down the names of the guardians. I don't like this because it's a public document. In my firm, we do a side document. So let's list the children, emergency contacts, the guardians, and then all your preferences, religion, education, social media, mental health, access to other family members. And maybe you want to say, and I want to make sure my kids don't live with so-and-so. Or, hey, my parents might be expecting that they would be named as guardians. And we're acknowledging that. And we're saying, we really love you. We really want you to be grandparents. We don't want you to have to be disciplinarians. We don't want you to have to navigate, I don't know, premier high school soccer and all the difficulties and all the hard stuff that comes with having teenagers. We just want you to be there as emotional support. And there's money in the trust for a vacation together, and just go be loving and kind together. Do you own real estate? This is critical. If you own real estate in California, you have to have a revocable trust. Otherwise, the probate fees, the cost that the court will take from your estate, from the money that you leave when you die, it'll be in tens of thousands of dollars if you have real estate and you don't have a trust. It's an epic waste of money. And another question is, do you have adult children? So no one's ever ready to lose their parents. And even if your kids are 50 years old, should you really just, here's your money outright? Or should you hold that money in the trust? Maybe for at least a year while they're grieving. They can come and ask for it, for emergencies, but maybe we just don't want to give it to them all at once. Maybe we're worried. Maybe they're contractors or anesthesiologists, and they would rather have money in a trust so that they have some asset protection instead of it just sitting in a bank account. Your marital status, as the next question, it really matters. If you're married, you can have a trust together. If you are not married, you need two trusts. If you're divorcing, we can absolutely create documents that will protect you. And then when your divorce is final, transfer your assets into your trust to keep your ex out of your business and away from your money, and especially away from controlling any money that you leave for your children.
Number 7, I messed that one up, so my apologies. I didn't, the question.
Well, that's okay. So there, I submitted my poll results.
Okay, is everybody filled it out? Looks like they have. Yeah, I'm gonna end a poll.
Are you sure choice number 1 isn't the right answer for number 7?
That's what I chose. Ding, ding, ding.
I just did trust.
I just, yeah, it is. It is, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, can you see
I
the
am
result?
so impressed. 80% here have a revocable trust. So the one of us that doesn't, we're going to make sure that we get that done. Most of you have seen your lawyer within the last 3 years, which is wonderful. We've got a good mix of parents and not parents. Everybody here has real estate. Be careful with your real estate. Do not, especially if you're a married couple, do not ask a real estate agent, a mortgage broker, or a lender how to hold title to your house. They don't know. They're not lawyers, and they don't understand what it means. They might say things like, most people do it this way. Well, who cares? I don't care what most people do. I talked to a couple this morning. They have a house worth $2 million. It has no mortgage on it. His parents gave him the money to buy that house. His eyes, when I told him that, I said, do you guys own this as community property? Why? And he said, well, that's what the realtor said. I said, well, you bought this with your own separate money. And now if you get a divorce, half of it's hers. And he said, well, that's okay. But I could see it in his eyes. He was horrified. He was horrified at his lack of education and what he had done with his parents' money. So do not listen. And realtors, mortgage people, lenders, they're all wonderful people, but they have to stop talking about this stuff. And you find one that's talking about it, tell them to call me and I'll make them stop. Having adult children, we talked about that a little bit, that we always want to protect people from the perils of inheritance. 33% of people who inherit money lose it within 3 years. And that's not because they're young and dumb. It's because they're grieving and they're vulnerable. Predators, creeps, potential love interests, business associates, right? It's dangerous to inherit money. And so we really do want to protect people. So we have married people and single people. Let me talk for a minute about partners. So there's no such thing as common law marriage in California. So you can be an unmarried couple for 40 years and it doesn't matter. The family law code will never apply. So if you break up, then what happens to the stuff? A lot of people think, well, I take my stuff and they take their stuff and that's it. Well, the other person might feel like they want some of your stuff. And using the theory of implied contract. So we're going all the way back to the first 2 weeks of law school, right? We're going way back and into some law that is so heavy on the facts that you will be in mediation or in court for so long trying to undo this stuff. If you are a couple, a committed couple, and you're not married, you need a cohabitation agreement. You need to set the rules of your own game. I would say that about 30% of the clients who come to me who are not married, and I send them to a family law attorney, you guys need to learn about the family law code. And let's talk a little bit about tax, because your CPA told you not to get married because it's better that way. But let's talk about other kinds of tax. Go get educated, come back and tell me what you guys want to do, because your options are get a cohabitation agreement, get married, and get married with a prenup. And a prenup just means we don't like the family law. That's all it means. Doesn't mean I don't love you. And you don't have to tell your mother you have one. It's none of her business. It just sets the rules of the game if you guys divorce. And it has no impact on what happens when you die. None whatsoever.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So going back to what Carly said, like the quality of the estate plan. So what if like someone in your family is like, oh yeah, I got it. I took care of it. We got that estate plan. Like, how do you know like if it's good or not? And like, if they make you an executor or not, or like, how do you even know they did it right? Is that a question? Like, how do you know it's any good? Is there a way to ask?
Yeah. What's wonderful is now I'm going to write a newsletter about this. This is great. This is a wonderful topic. So the first thing is who drafted it? So did you use a lawyer or did you try to do this online? If they tried to do this online, this is a huge red flag. When you do your own estate plan online, it's kind of like doing your own auto insurance. If you get it wrong and you're underinsured, if you get it wrong and these documents don't do what you need them to do, there's nowhere else to look. If you used a broker for your insurance and you were underinsured, and you followed their advice, then you can turn around and sue them. If you work with a lawyer and the documents aren't quite right, the lawyer will have malpractice insurance. By doing it on your own, you're just completely exposed. Because those companies, Susie Orman, LegalZoom, all that, they're not lawyers. And if you get it wrong, it's all on you. The things that I have seen, one spouse dies, the other one, no tax planning, no asset protection ability at all. They just get everything. And then when they die, everything to the kids at 18. What is okay, we've avoided probate, but we've done absolutely nothing else. The next thing you want to ask is, how much time did you spend with the lawyer? If it was, oh, we filled out some forms, they made it so easy, we only talked for about half an hour, and then we signed the documents and it was all done in 3 weeks. This makes me very nervous. Very, very nervous. At my firm, we spend like 4 hours with the clients. We want to hear everything about all of the family members because we're looking to spot risk. We're looking for it everywhere. What do you mean your younger brother has 4 DUIs and he lives with your mom? Let's look for your mom's deed. Oh my God, he's on the deed. Oh my God. And your mom doesn't have enough insurance either. These are the kinds of things that a good lawyer will help. So then, we can find a lawyer for mom. We can get her to clean up this deed. We can get the brother out of the house. All of these things. And so, you don't know what you don't know when you're trying to do this on your own. And you still don't know what you don't know if the lawyer is not spending time with you, if they don't take a really holistic approach. And I'd say that when you're looking for a lawyer, you're looking for somebody who has a really big network, because Clients need everything. I refer my clients to casualty insurance, life insurance, long-term care insurance, CPAs, financial advisors, sometimes corporate counsel, sometimes family law attorneys for prenups or postnups or changing the way that they own real estate. So you need, and it's not just about giving the referrals, it's about really spending time with those other professionals to learn more about what they do so that we can spot the issues. So I can see, like, I don't have to remember exactly what the issue is, but if it just rings a little bell, oh, I really want you to go and talk to my friend so-and-so who practices in this other area. Tell them what you told me. And if they get nervous, they can explain it to you better than I can. Because I don't proclaim to have any expertise outside of what I do. Then ask them the second big thing, and that was all one huge big thing. That was quite 18 things in there. Have you transferred your stuff to your trust? And if they have worked with somebody, or if they tried to do this on their own, like, and none of this was explained, that is a huge red flag. Any good lawyer is going to tell them, you use your certification of trust. Here is your list of assets that we forced you to fill out, right? You have to fill out your list of assets, because when you're done, after you sign your trust, you have to transfer all that stuff over. The lawyer should always do the real estate, should not have clients going down to recorder's offices and dealing with that. It's too easy to make a mistake. The lawyer should do the real estate and then teach the client, here's how you change your beneficiary designation. Here's what I want you to tell the banks. Maybe they even give you a letter to bring into the bank and say, my lawyer said I need to do this. And then you just do that. That part is really critical. And that's also part of why you need to see your lawyer every 3 years to make sure that everything is flowing through the trust. And this is how estate planning safeguards women. If you hear someone say, oh my gosh, we got our estate plan done 15 years ago, it's all done. No, oh my God. Get back to the lawyer, make sure that it's up to date with the law, make sure it's up to date with best practices. And the lawyer is also going to double check that all the money is flowing through the trust, because that's what protects a surviving spouse. That's what protects the ultimate beneficiaries, kids or other people.
So the trust is a good key indicator to say, oh, so your lawyer advised you to put everything in a trust. But that would be a good question to ask.
Well, so you have a trust. Have you transferred all your assets to your trust? Does your trust own everything now? And if they
Got
just
it.
blank,
Okay.
they need
Then you know.
say, you better go back and ask your lawyer about this, because your house has to be in the trust and you have to deal with all your bank accounts. Everything has to be in there. The life insurance, everything has to be
Got
in
it. That's a good question. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And the big red flag is, oh, we did it 10 years ago. It's done. Nope. It's not a one and done. I call my clients back every 3 years, and it's a free 1 hour meeting, but there's a little work, because before you get to meet with me, you have to fill out the asset sheet again. And you have to show me that you own everything as the trustee. And what they tell me is that, and they can't even schedule it until they've shown that to me. And what's interesting is sometimes that's the fire. It's like, ooh, a free hour with a lawyer. That forces them to finally get the funding, because I won't meet with them until they do it. It's not mean. It's part of the good system to make
What,
sure
you can
things
read
are
my
getting done
mind?
properly.
They'll do their homework.
And I hope that you guys have got the sense. So estate planning, really, it's just about 3 things. What about me? If you don't have documents in place, people have to go to a court to ask, what about her? How do we take care of her, right? How do we pay her taxes? How do we deal with her landlord? How do we go to her work and get her disability payments? Because nobody is allowed to talk to you, right? You can't just go, even if you're married, you can't go to your spouse's employer and say, hey, I need the disability payments. They can't talk to you. They're not allowed. There are laws in place. So what about me? What about my staff? How do I make sure my staff goes where I want it to go in a way that protects the people I love? And number 3, what about my kids? How do I make sure that I'm putting my best foot forward with the court, so the court understands not only who my kids should live with, but why those people and how? What's the roadmap? Education, religion. Does my child have an IEP? Is my child a prodigy in some way that I need to list these other important people? And I even like to list, like, Well, I want to list your best friend from college because eventually your kids are going to want all the stories. They're going to want to know everything. And so you got to leave that list of people. And, you know, California's default for what about me, what about my stuff, and what about my kids is conservatorship, which we all know what that is now because of Brittany. Usually not that extreme, but it's expensive and it's humiliating. What about my stuff? A revocable trust to maintain privacy and stay out of court. And what about my kids? The guardianship nomination form. If you don't have it, then it could be child protective services if nobody comes forward, because the standard is where the children can stay where it's necessary and convenient. So your creepy neighbor across the street comes over and tells the cops, oh, I'll take them. And they seem nice. Maybe that's where your kids are until your family shows up. I don't know. You've got to have rules in place. You have to take control and set your own rules. So we talked about, let's talk about some related stuff. Let's geek out a little bit about insurance. So a really good lawyer will force the client to do a full insurance audit. And that is from renters all the way up through long-term care. Do not DIY your insurance. I touched on that a little bit before. You don't know what you don't know about insurance. Insurance is incredibly complicated. I know some terrific brokers who, if you're looking for a house in the East Bay, which is full of fire zones, she can tell you which side of the street to buy the house on to avoid buying a house that's either uninsurable or incredibly expensive insurance wise. It's like, oh, it's a little bit cheaper. Is it though? Is it? When we think about, everybody has to have umbrella insurance. Absolutely. That's just, and when you're working with an insurance person, they should ask you a lot of personal questions about your money. How much money do you have? How much money do you make? What kind of stuff do you have in your house? It's up to them to come up with a number that makes sense for you. They can't sell you too much insurance. The underwriters won't let them. If you only have $1 million worth of stuff, you can't get a $10 million umbrella policy. It won't work. It's really important, and it doesn't cost any more. Just go work with somebody and they'll put the bundle together for you. When it comes to life insurance, okay, I know this is being recorded, but don't tell people that I don't care about the kids. If for couples, I worry about a survivor. I worry about a surviving spouse or partner. I want to see insurance policies that are enough, especially if you're doing a term policy. If you die, does your partner have or spouse have enough money to, and then you have your list of goals. Is it pay off the house, get the kids through college, take 3 years of work off, replace your income for 10 years, take care of your parents, like whatever those goals are, and you're going to come up with crazy numbers. $10 million, $8 million. And then you'll get the quote, float back down to earth and get something that's reasonable. And maybe you'll do like complicated layering where we have like a 20-year policy, so we're worried about college, and then a 30-year policy that's more focused exactly just on a surviving spouse. I don't want to see widows having to sell their homes because there's just not enough liquidity. There's just not enough cash. Disability insurance is income replacement. The number one thing you own is your ability to make money. And for people who don't have children, I find it especially critical to look into long-term care insurance. You know, it's incredibly expensive to not have it. It's kind of expensive to have it. There are some hybrid policies out there, and I'm not an insurance expert, but I feel like I would do a disservice to my clients if I didn't force them to go through this insurance meat grinder. And they're all always super annoyed. And then by the last meeting, they're like, thank you so much for having me. And I feel so much better. And now if a tree falls on my house, you know that so-and-so is going to come over with like a flask and a blanket and the forms and take care of it for me. We always also double check to make sure, like we look at mortgage rates and should they investigate a refi? If they're just paying way too much, and front load that with, you know, don't start your 30-year all over again. Look at the life of the loan. We talk to them about financial advisors, and we send them like a little script or a cheat sheet if they're going to interview people. How do you get paid? Do you manage investments? Do you help me do planning? And also CPAs. A lot of people are DIYing their taxes, or they're working with really someone who's going to, you know, take what they're given and give the answer. Well, you made this and you have these deductions and here's your answer. Other people would be but maybe the preference would be for someone to help them look forward and avoid some tax potholes. It's really a lot of fun and an honor doing this work. I love working with people who are not born in the US. And it's really fun also working with people who are not from California. They're absolutely shocked that we need so much insurance and that our laws are so complicated and the taxation is so complicated. It's really fun helping people build a team so that when any little thing happens, we know who we're calling. And I'm absolutely always available as a hub. Realtors, mortgage, like all of that. I know I've been walking the earth for a while. So I know a lot of people, a lot of good people who take what they do very seriously, don't dabble, and are always there to help. I see some stuff in the chat. Thank you. Okay, we've talked about estate planning, we talked about insurance. There's one piece, one asset that you can't put into the trust. I mean, there are a few, but there's one big one that most people have, and that's a retirement account. You have to own your retirement account as a natural person, not as the trustee of a trust. Now, I want you to think about your parents. If your parents have big retirement accounts, probably what they're doing is spending down their cash in their brokerage, thinking they're going to leave you the retirement account. And that used to be amazing, because it used to be that you could leave your retirement account to a baby and all that money grew income tax free all those decades. And then when the baby grew up, the baby would stop working and start taking the minimum required distributions. And it wasn't a huge tax hit because they're not working anymore. They don't have an income. The party is over. Congress figured it out. So now there's a new law and it's called the Secure Act, and it is a mess because the regulations are unclear and the act itself is unclear, poorly written. The general rule is between spouses, the same. If you have a partner who's within 10 years of you, basically the same. But anybody who's 10 years younger, including your kids, they have to pull all the money out within 10 years. And we thought, because it originally said within 10 years. So we thought, okay, so we can help our clients figure out with a financial advisor, you're going to take that sabbatical year and that'll be when you pull the money out, right? No income, pull the money, no. Then the IRS came back and said, nope, you have to take it out. We know, we don't care what we said. Now, we don't care what Congress said. Now we say, you have to take some money out each of those 10 years. So now there's nowhere to hide from this enormous income tax bomb. It's really important to get the older generation in front of a financial advisor. It's going to be frustrating because the Secure Act is so poorly written. The IRS is underfunded. The clarifying regulations they issued made everything worse and more confusing. And so when you talk to financial advisors and estate planning lawyers about this, we really do put our face in our hands and we apologize a lot. And we say we don't know. But it doesn't mean that no planning can be done. And everybody's situation is a little bit unique because there are lots of different types of retirement vehicles. Roth conversions are very popular right now so that we can just, the older generation can just take that tax hit and pay the tax and leave it clean for the next generation. So at least when it comes out over those 10 years, it's coming out clean. So that's a big issue that I've been spotting for a lot of my clients. Because it can be frightening. You can be at your highest earning power in your mid 50s and lose your parents, and you've got this big tax problem that maybe could have been avoided.
And that's like part of the reason why you need to do it every 3 years, right? Because the laws are changing as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Recently in California, we had an enormous change to the way that real estate is taxed when it passes from one generation to the next. It used to be you could leave a real estate empire to your kids in California and their property tax didn't increase. Amazing. Amazing. Now think about your local little commercial village, right? Your dry cleaner, the family-owned bakery, the family-owned hardware store. If they own the brick and mortar, brace yourself. And hopefully this law will be overturned because it's truly a mess. Now, when you leave real estate to your kids, unless they live in the house, they're going to get reassessed. They're going to have to pay fair market value tax on all of that real estate. There's one exception. If they live in the house and it's under $1 million, they get to keep your Prop 13 up to $1 million, but anything over $1 million gets reassessed. This is going to cause huge problems with commercial real estate for any mom and pop store. any mom and pop business. And then for families, it's going to be just devastating. It's going to be devastating. So many families, blue collar families who they're not stock market people, they're real estate people. So they bought some houses and they're thinking, I'm going to leave one to each kid. But you're not leaving it equally to each kid anymore, because one kid might just walk away clean, whereas the rest of them get, well, you have a free house and that's wonderful. And your new property tax is $40,000 a year. And not everybody can afford $40,000 a year. My neighborhood, the Excelsior, is very blue collar. I don't see how people are going to be able to afford this. And so it's a problem. And the voters of California voted for this. We did this to ourselves. So hopefully we will overturn it ourselves. And there are a few advocates out there trying to get it taken away. And, you know, a lot of people didn't hear about it because it passed right before Thanksgiving in 2020. And then the due date to transfer stuff to the next generation before this new law took effect was like Valentine's Day. So, you know, Merry Christmas, everybody. Let's talk to grandma about how she has to give us all of her real estate now. And then she's not the matriarch anymore and she loses all power. No, it was really like a big bucket of worms in the middle of Thanksgiving dinner. It was bad. It was bad. So yeah, every 3 years you have to see a lawyer, because we don't know what Congress is doing. We don't know what the state assembly is doing, what the governor's doing. And we certainly have no idea what the voters of the state of California are going to get up to. It's an uncontrollable situation. And sometimes it's a judge in Fresno who makes a decision about a case having to do with the way that married people own real estate. And that can throw a wrench. It's really important to keep coming back and making sure that your documents do what you need them to do, and that they really allow you to take care of your spouse, your partner, and ultimately your children and the other people that you love. Boy, I've just been talking nonstop.
No, I'm trying not to talk because I love to talk a lot, but I'm viewing it now from the lens of, do you have an estate planning attorney with the ing, as opposed to, do you have an attorney that will do an estate plan for you? Because it's the ing that is the relationship.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you know, if you live in a very small town, there probably is that lawyer that does all different types of law. And the lawyers that I've met who are these generalists, they usually have a very big Rolodex of specialists that they call on, because they can do the simple stuff and then they have someone to call. Hey, this is a little bit of a unique situation. This is a little something. But they need to be generalists, because in small towns, there aren't enough doctors and can I say it? There aren't enough lawyers. There aren't. But if you live in a big metropolitan area, people are specialized, lawyers are specialized. And it would be very unusual to have a lawyer who's doing bankruptcy, family law, estate planning, entity formation. The areas of law are too big and they do overlap, but it's really hard to keep up with absolutely everything and make sure you're spotting everything. It's a relationship that you should look for. It should not be, oh yeah, so-and-so did our estate plan, and then we never talk to them again. I work with clients all the time who never talk to their lawyer again. We don't do that. You really should, when you're looking for a lawyer, ask, do you follow up? At my firm, you sign your documents and then you get a long string of emails. Don't forget about long-term care insurance. Make sure you share your advanced healthcare directive with your doctor. Here's a quiz and an article for your digital assets. Whole bunch of emails. And then you get an auto email every year. Hey, go look at your binder. Look at the list of people. How's everyone doing? And do you need to check in for 20 minutes? Are you stuck on anything? Do you want us to look at a funding form? Are you okay? And then we call everybody back every 3 years for a free 1-hour meeting. And we think it's important that it's free because it will get people to come in. Because when does a lawyer ever do anything for free? Never, we don't. And so we know that it's a hook to get you in, so we can make sure that everything is set up properly. So you're protecting yourself and your people.
Yeah. I always say free is the other F word.
I use it sparingly. That's the only thing that I do free workshops because I'm a big proponent of education. And I tell everybody, I don't care if you work with me, but now that you've been at this workshop, and even this, right? Now that you watch this video, now that you've attended this, you have to get an estate plan done because you know that you have to. You need umbrella insurance. You have to have an estate plan. You know, don't DIY your stuff. Go out and stimulate the economy, pay other people to do things for you.
Yeah, it's not sourdough bread, right?
No.
Yeah, I like what you said too, like, even if you don't have real estate or lots and lots of assets or whatever, you still can get an estate plan that's correct for you. So I think that's also a was it misnomer? Is that the right word? That you have to be rich and have a lot of money to even need.
Exactly. If somebody with $50 million dies without an estate plan, what's the worst thing that can happen? The IRS gets some money, and well, what happens is a judge makes a terrible mistake about when the children should get the money. James Gandolfini from The Sopranos, a judge decided that his daughter should get her inheritance when she was 18. James Gandolfini died with a lot of money. This is insanity. And so, but the family isn't completely thrown into disarray. We're not having to sell the family home. And if somebody without a plan who's very wealthy needs to be conserved, well, there's money to pay the lawyers. There's money to deal with all of these things. So I don't worry about them as much. And I'm not interested in helping them defer taxes. I'm really interested in working with people like me, middle-class people, to preserve what they have and, to hopefully, because the world is changing. What my parents were able to do is not what I'm able to do. My husband and I live in a house that was purchased by a concrete mason, a union worker who didn't speak English. We're two lawyers, and I don't think that we could buy a house today in San Francisco. Setting things up so that we're not wasting money on unnecessary legal fees after death, on unnecessary legal fees because someone's hit their head. It's important. We have to preserve our wealth.
What would you say to people that are like living in fear of death and say, I don't want to do it because, that means I'm going to die, or I don't want to do it, I'm not ready because I don't want to think about my mortality.
Yeah. What's fun is in my fee agreement, I have, if you don't sign your documents within a certain amount of time, I'll close your file and you have to pay me to reopen it. And that really is I'm afraid if I sign my documents, I'm going to get struck by lightning. And so far, I've had to use that clause. I've had to enforce it a few times. Like, that's fine. But if you don't sign, I'm going to close your file. And if you want to reopen it, you have to pay me. Well, of course, nobody wants to do that. So they all come and sign, and they're all still alive. They all seem fine. They didn't get struck by lightning. The black cat didn't cross their path. They're fine. I think that estate planning, what clients tell me over and over again, is that it's not scary and sad. It's actually very empowering, and it's much bigger and more creative than they thought that it was going to be. Well, even just a healthcare directive, who's not supposed to come in the room? Do you want to be buried or cremated or pressed into a diamond, or do you want a Viking funeral? You want your head cut off? These are real questions that I have to ask. What about religion? Or if you're not practicing Catholic, but your mother is, can she come in with a priest? Are you okay with that? Is your partner or your spouse okay with that? Let's talk about this. And so it's lots of very real life scenarios. We don't really just sit around contemplating that you're dead. I think that I say over the course of the few meetings, and now you've died twice, because we're really not that focused on that. And we're not constantly worrying at that. And, I'll leave you with a warning that your estate plan is a vision statement. It is an absolute expression of your values. And I once got an incredibly mean postcard from clients. I think they were in Alabama. And it was something like, "We are so mad at you. We will call you when we get back." It's like, oh my God, this is terrible. Oh, and I was new. And I just thought, oh my gosh. And they're in Alabama. I can't call them. So when they got back, they called me and they said, and I said, "What happened?" And they said, "Well, remember when we did our documents and we said in the guardianship nomination form that we want our children to go to the family reunion, that the trust would pay for our kids, but also our parents to always be able to attend the family reunion because it's critical for family harmony and togetherness and blah, blah, blah." I said, "Yeah." They said, "Well, we went and it was 105 degrees and it was 98% humidity. And there were these huge bugs everywhere and the food was terrible and our relatives are crazy. But we just got drunk and we sent you that postcard, but really, we're really happy that we went and we're happy that we signed the documents." And then they sent me a bunch of referrals. So you have to be careful what you put into the plan, because when you're people, the goal is You live to be very old. Your people find your documents. They see themselves in it. Like, oh, look what mom and dad were going to do for me. I mean, they died penniless. They died holding their last poker chip in Vegas with a smile on their face. But look who was supposed to be in charge, and look at the flow of the money, and look who was supposed to be my guardian. This is beautiful. And I know these people, and we did these things, and we lived this life. And that can bring some closure. That can bring a lot of comfort, knowing that everything was set up properly.
You just gave me the willies.
Oh, I'm such just a softie about this stuff. I mean, I'm just a big old empathy love bomb.
It's really nice.
And you know, what's interesting is that most of the estate planning bar, this is what we're like. And it's really funny to be this kind of a lawyer. I used to be an entertainment lawyer and an IP lawyer. And, you know, it's great. I went to shows. I had a great time. But I'd never been hugged before. And I remember that my first client picked me up and spun me around and thanked me and kissed me on my face. And it was just, it's an extraordinary honor to practice in this area of the law. It is so much fun.
Well, I've been working with you for a while and I really have an understanding. But what I'm really getting is that it's more of a life planning document than a death planning document from the way that
Yes.
you're talking about it. And I don't think that if people looked at it like that, it'd be more inspiring.
We're trying. We're trying.
Yeah.
We're trying to change the conversation. We're trying to make it
Mhm.
more accessible. The estate planning is a social justice issue. More lawyers are talking about this. More lawyers are talking about, yeah, tax, it's important, but creating a savvy, protected
Mhm.
beneficiary who's not reliant on that check coming every month. Maybe that's more important. Maybe that's more value
Mhm.
than cheating the IRS out of a couple of $1,000. Let's really look at what it is that we're trying to accomplish and take care of each other and the next generation.
Great.
Well, now I'm getting all misty.
Misty eyes. Well, I think that's a great spot to call it today.
Thank you
unless
so much for
anybody else
having me, Lainey. And
has a
thank you for
question.
helping me get my messaging on point.
Yeah. Thank you
Thanks
for
so much for
being
doing it, Patricia.
amazing. What's that,
Yeah.
Beatrice? Sorry, I cut you off.
No, I talked over you. I'm sorry, Lainey.
Please go.
I just said thank you so much for doing it, Patricia. You're a gift to all of
Yeah.
us. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I do workshops, so tell people, come and find me, look for me.
Yep.
Patricia Fonte Estate Planning Workshop pops right up.
The link will be
They're
in the
free,
chat.
and I don't care who you work with, just come for the education. And if anybody has a group, I'm happy to do a lunch and learn. If you have a group in person, I send a pie social, and maybe I'll come, or maybe I'll be there on video and answer all your questions, and we can really, drill down more specifically to like your cohort and talk about your specific issues. I love doing education. I'm always here.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. Well, great to see everybody and have a great night.
Thank you. Thanks for
Thanks.
coming.
Patricia.